see here. All right, so it looks like we're live officially. How we boys doing? Everybody having a good Tuesday evening?
Absolutely.
Uh oh. We got movement. We got movement on Christopher
We
Thomas.
got a camera change.
All good, brother. All good. All right, gents. Well, again, we're going live here through Vetted VA. Obviously, I'm not the normal host that runs this thing, but Josh was already pre-booked elsewhere, so we're just going to go ahead and fill in as best as we can, or at least myself. I'm going to fill in as best as I can. Again, my name is Jerry Avila. I am a mortgage broker within Vetted VA. I do hold what the VBA 5 rank. Amongst these gentlemen here, we're all ranked right up in there. I'm just your host today, so I'm just going to be asking questions, kind of just having combos and running the show here. But we do have on, if it shows up the same way for you guys, we have Jason Rivera up here at the top, and then we have who's a realtor and loan officer now, right?
That's correct.
So loving it, brother. Love that you joined the dark side. And then we got Christopher Thomas right below me, and then we have Brian Atwood. Both of these boys up in the what is it? What do you call it? Just the north, basically.
The Midwest.
That's right.
Yeah. And so you guys are Minnesota and actually, I should say Michigan, and then Minnesota. And you guys are both in the lovely cold. So welcome, y'all. All righty, bud. So you guys are both also in the mortgage broker side. So I guess we'll probably be leaning a lot on Jason here for a lot of his real estate knowledge and his guidance here, so we can make sure that this flows nice and smooth as to what the offers are supposed to look like. So again, our topic of conversation for today is helping VA buyers with competitive offers through the proper strategy, right? Having the right game plan in place and how to manage through it. So let's see. We're going to be dealing with a lot of misconceptions. We see them all the time, whether it be from repairs, things that they think that need to be done, things that don't need to be done, things that they can pay for, they can't pay for, all that wonderful stuff. And so we'll definitely be getting into each and every one of those specific topics, diving into it, but not too far into it. Again, we were talking offline here. We don't want to go down the rabbit hole and become Alice in Wonderland and all of a sudden then somewhere else. So definitely want to be talking about those things. And then I'll kind of leave it for you guys. I know I kind of semi-introduced you guys, but I'll go ahead and start it off with Jason. Jason, tell us a little bit about yourself, brother, and your business.
Sounds good. As Jerry mentioned, I'm a recently licensed loan officer. Also been doing real estate for about a decade, maybe a little longer. Here in San Diego / Southern California. Also a former Navy vet for 10 years in the sub community, and love helping veterans. I mean, that's why I'm here. I love getting on camera and doing these lives and talking, the truth. So I'll pass it over.
That's right. All right, and then like I said, down right below me here, we got Christopher Thomas. And Christopher Thomas, give us a little bit about you, bro.
Yeah, Chris Thomas. I'm in Michigan, born and raised here, live here. I've been doing mortgages for 10 years, 6 years with a bigger company and 4 years on my own, me and my wife against the world. I'm very confident in the VA loan through trial and error over the last 10 years. And I love taking a hard situation or taking a problem and solving it. And I think the VA has a lot of tools to help access home ownership above other loan types. And the more you know about it, the less intimidating it's going to be, as we'll find out.
That's right. All right, I've been here to my bottom right here. I guess is here at the bottom left. We got Brian Atwood, and Brian, give him a little something about yourself, brother.
Yeah, for sure. I'm here in Minnesota, licensed in the Dakotas, and then also down in Florida. But I'm an Army veteran myself. I grew up in real estate, actually, so I had a lot of knowledge on the real estate side. And we ended up launching into mortgage when we just realized that there's so many realtors that don't know a lot about mortgage, and vice versa as well. A lot of lenders don't dive into that world either. I had several homes personally, and I don't recommend this for any other pros watching this, but several homes personally on VA loans before I got into mortgage. And when you go back and start diving through your old closing disclosures, it hurts your heart a little bit to realize that some of the places that you worked with before. So again, just come back to try and educate and teach everyone to know what to look for, what to watch out for, how to win and use this awesome benefit.
For sure. And I appreciate you guys for coming on. I know that obviously we are all busy. I know we probably all have text messages, calls coming in right now from realtors, from other lenders, and trying to get things done as quickly as possible. And you guys are dedicating your time to answer questions, give guidance, and give support to those who are in our community watching. So if anything, I'll ask those that are watching, please share the live, because it only helps us being able to answer more questions, especially if you guys have live questions on here. I can answer, or at least pose those to the group and have them answer. So again, guys, thank you so much for making yourself available. So let's go ahead and get into what I guess would be like the mindset of making these offers, and basically understanding exactly what we want to game plan when we are preparing our clients and making sure that we're setting them up for success for these potential offers. So just because you mentioned that you had grown up in the real estate side, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of jump on yours and kind of give us a little bit of the things that you've seen from your perspective, having been involved in that side of the business beforehand and being on the mortgage broker side.
Oh, absolutely. Like I remember being very young, sitting in my dad's office at a real estate company. So he was a real estate broker as we were kids, and I didn't realize it at the time, but when they would talk about like, hey, we've got this offer coming in, and they would hear that it was a VA loan, it was always this, oh God, like we're gonna have to deal with this now. And that's frustrating, because as you learn more about it and learn about the opportunities and strengths that you have that other loans don't, it's like this is a no-brainer. But I think that's why we're all doing this, and being part of Vetted VA is just to understand that, like, guys, this is just misconception. Misconceptions come from bad experience, and a lot of those bad experiences just came from a lack of education, and people that are like, hey, they heard something, they're experiencing something, somebody said, hey, sure, I can totally do this loan, and had no idea what they're doing, and then it just ran into a bunch of hurdles beyond that. And then from then on, some of our own realtors that I grew up with were like, VA is terrible, right? VA is terrible. And that's just frustrating to hear, right? There's so much opportunity. We all know that. We're going to talk into that and dive into it. But there is a perception, and the best thing about this group is that, hey, let's challenge that. Let's learn from it and see, hey, where should we be putting our efforts and thoughts?
Absolutely. So Jason, I'll kick it off with you when it comes to the actual meat and potatoes of the subject. Is like, what does the seller care most about? And in your experience, because you deal with them more often, right, on the seller and on the buyer side, you know what to look for, and you know what to pose on both sides of the coin, right? So give us a little bit of background on that, and what it is that you do specifically.
Well, I think I'm going to take it from the standpoint as not necessarily the listing agent, only because when you're the listing agent, you're working directly with the seller, and so you, hopefully, as a good listing agent, you know what the seller is looking for. And in that case, if you're representing a seller and you receive a VA offer, and let's just say that seller had some sort of misconception about the VA loan, I would just simply educate the seller as, and this is what we do anyway, right? When a seller gets multiple offers as a listing agent, it's kind of like, here's your offers. We've already sorted them by price point, but also, speed. What do their finances look like? Did we speak to their loan officer or bank or whoever they're, maybe their cash or whatever, and kind of organize them as to where we think they kind of fit as strongest to least strongest. And then it's kind of like, here's where they're at. Based on what you were looking for when we first listed your home, maybe you PCS to Hawaii and this house is vacant. I think a lot of sellers don't really realize what they want, right? Like they think they just want the most bang for the buck. I mean, that's naturally, I think any of us would be kind of with that same kind of like, we just want the most money. But they kind of forget sometimes about, hey, like getting the top dollar. But if the property has to, especially in this market, I'm going to talk about Southern California. So I know everyone's market's a little differently. So these are conversations you just need to have with your listing agent or, buyer's agent. But in this case, in my example, I'm going to say, homes are sitting on the market for a little bit longer, right? So if you're out of the area and you're paying a $4,000 a month mortgage, the longer this home sits, you're losing money, right? 2 months, okay, you're $8,000, you're going to be quickly 10 grand, and you're trying to shoot for an extra 20. Well, if the median home average day on market is like 90 days, and we can get an offer within the first 2 weeks. Well, let's start doing the math here. Like maybe we're not shooting for that gold star, but you still got the moon and it's still looking pretty good. And if this guy can close in maybe 50 days, VA offer, good financing, they're willing to, push through and get through, then like that's a golden ticket right there. Now, coming from the buyer's side, which I think is a little bit more applicable to this topic anyway, as representing a buyer, I'm going to talk to the listing agent and kind of find out like what their situation is. Like, do they have offers on the table? What does this seller want? And some listing agents will give me, they'll talk till they're blue in the face, and others are just like, submit your highest best, and you're like, okay.
You get no feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it can be like pulling teeth, and sometimes it could just be like free flow. Let them just tell you everything, even the things they probably shouldn't have said.
100%. But I mean, we want to know: do they have offers on the table? If they do have offers, are they over asking, under asking, at asking? Kind of gauge what the scenario is looking like, and then of course we pull comps. And, working with the buyer, we already know their kind of situation. And then we kind of take all that information, gather it, come back to them and say, all right, here's what we know. Here's where, if you were wanted to come in strong, like a strong offer, I would say, hey, come in here. If you just want to throw a dart out there and see if they're willing to play a game, come in here. And ultimately, it's up to you as the buyer to make that decision.
Exactly. No, it's very true. Now, I think that what really comes down to this whole process a lot of times is like Brian had mentioned, is education, right? We have to educate.
100%.
So on our side, when we're trying to eliminate some of those myths and misunderstandings of the VA home loan, really, I think that we really need to stop and take a moment to just sometimes have that phone call with said agent, because sometimes the listing agent isn't very well aware. Sometimes the buyer's agents too, but you kind of guide them, and you have that at least close proximity. You can put your arm around and be like, hey, we got this. Don't worry about it. I'll guide you through it. But when it's a listing agent, it's a hurdle that we actually have to get across with them and actually get them to feel comfortable and understand, like, hey, this is actually legit. Like this, we need to actually pay attention to what's going on here, because I didn't know that this was actually doable. Right. And so, Chris, I'll pass it off to you here. Considering the fact that the common thread that we get, right, is that VA loans are slow, that they're stricter guidelines, that they're weak buyers. Like, we get all of those, right, constantly. So give us a little bit of a breakdown as to some of those myths that you come across, that you have to come in and educate not only the consumer, but sometimes even on the listing side, to help those sellers make sure that they get their home sold.
Yeah, for sure. So let me just assume you start with the buyer, right? Because they're pre-approved through you. You did all your diligence and you feel strongly about their qualifications. And then I'm reaching out to the listing agent. So I'm never going to make an assumption about what a listing agent knows about the VA loan. I'm just going to open-ended question. Hey, have you done a VA loan before? Are you comfortable and confident with them? Oh, they might say, oh, I heard they're slow. Not exactly true. The VA appraisal process only takes, 10 days there and back. I can usually get everything else done, title work, home insurance, home inspection within that period. we meet again in 2 weeks, we're wrapping things up, and we're, you know, closed in 3 to 4 weeks, or a general 30-day or less timeline, which is mostly what people are asking for. So I never assume what the listing agent knows. I want to warm them up. I want to make a connection with them. Self-serving too. If I do a great job, we might continue to work together in the future. But I also keep in mind, okay, what, like was said before, what's important to the listing agent? Do they have a concern about a low appraisal? Well, here's the great news. My client qualifies for 100% financing. That means they may have some cash for an appraisal gap if things go south. Or I'm also comfortable and confident with the VA appraisal rebuttal process of the Tidewater and the reconsideration of value. And I have a proven success record of overturning values to make things happen. And, you know, that's usually what they're looking for. They want to make sure you're a knowledgeable professional. And it's kind of, I think about it as we're all on the same team learning together, and have the conversations up front and go through plan A, B, and C with the listing agent. I think that goes a long way, along with doing your full diligence on your own work, which is taking care of your buyer and making sure they're getting to the closing table.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Brian, give me a little thought process as to some of the things that you see, especially when people tell you that because they're 100% financed, they are weak buyers. Like, how do you kind of meet that challenge? Being a veteran yourself, right? Like, it's like when people start saying that whole "there's no skin in the game," that I mean, me being a civilian, I know like that hurts the heck out of me. So I can only imagine how that would make a veteran feel themselves. Like, I'm not in your shoes, but I can say, like, that's messed up.
Right.
How do you kind of cross that bridge?
Well, you know, you always want to approach, and as these guys are both saying, it's the key is communication and getting ahead of some of these debates from the beginning, right? Don't even give them the opportunity to look at that offer and go, oh, shoot, this is 0 down and they're asking for whatever, that this might not be a super strong offer. I'll add to what Jason was saying here too, that like from my experience, what a lot of sellers want, again, they all think they want top dollar. They really want is a closing. They want confidence. They want to make sure this is going to happen and not be ripping their hair out.
Not going back to market.
Yeah. So this does come up and it kills me. So I've said this. I don't recommend everyone saying this all the time, but like when people say like, oh, a veteran, if they're doing 0 down, they don't have any skin in the game. And I'll say, you know what? They have more skin in the game than anybody, right? They signed on that line. They went down range. They fought for that benefit. Nobody has deserved as much of them. And as we know from, you know, I encourage everyone to, if you haven't checked out the vetted VA white paper, understand that this is a data-driven thing. This isn't just a personal feeling. Yeah, I love and want to support veterans, but look at the data. We know that veterans are some of the strongest buyers that are out there with the lowest denial rates and lowest default rates. Okay, whether they want to put 0 down, they might be able to buy that place cash. Doesn't mean they want to or it's the right situation for them. They have a benefit. Why would you not do that, right? Let's buy this place with somebody else's money. So it does come up, but I always will challenge, hey, you know what? Like, do you want, what do you really want? Do you want the highest likelihood of closing on this? Then VA is where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll pose this to Jason just because I know that you face these questions constantly. But when it comes to certain fees being paid, right? Before there was even more restriction as to certain fees that the veteran could not pay for, but there's certain fees that even before were like, it was okay for the veteran to pay for certain fees, right? One of them being like the termite inspection, even sometimes the termite repairs. So knowing that that is one of the topics that typically gets spoken about. Why? Because we have sellers that may not have the money. But give us examples of like things like that could lead towards a veteran having to pay for certain fees that people think, oh, that they can't pay for that, or oh, my seller doesn't want to pay or can't pay for these because they're not getting any revenue from the property.
I mean, I would say the pest is probably the most common, kind of myth that's still kind of out there where, the veteran can't pay for it or they can't pay for the repair process. And here it's a negotiation standpoint. either party can pay for it, both the inspection and the repairs. I would say the second most common one that I see, which really came out after the NAR lawsuit, which is the paying of the real estate commission, their buyer's agent fee. Veterans are allowed to pay for that, and knock on some wood, at least in Southern California, most times. I mean, I haven't actually seen. I haven't encountered a situation where a buyer actually had to pay their real estate agent, but that is a possibility. That's something that, when they're going into contract and looking to buy, that is something that could come up. I mean, there's not really any fees that I'm thinking that's at least popping off my head that It's like, hey, you can't. It has to be paid for by the seller.
Yeah, I was thinking more of possibly even sometimes you see now with the TC fee, right? As long as it's customary to the area, those are certain things that the VA kind of took out of place, right? So we see that, and it's like before we would let it be known right away. It's like, hey, these are junk fees. You can't have a TC fee, a document registration fee, a document holding fee, things of that sort. And what we've come to find out is that if you are in a position to where it's customary in your area to charge for these fees, then now that's it's doable, it's acceptable, and the veteran can pay for it. So just some examples of things that I know that I've come across, and unfortunately I've seen a veteran have to pay their realtor before. It sucks. I hate that when that happens, because that means that there was possibly just no room for negotiation at all for the realtor to get paid through the seller, which is horrible. But I digress. Now, when we're talking about posing the proper offer and getting it out there, max price, discussing concessions and all that stuff. What are some things, Jason, that you kind of try to do with your consumer, with your veteran consumer, to better understand exactly where they want to be? Because obviously, just because they qualify for a certain dollar amount doesn't mean that they want to go all the way up there. And also at the same time, they don't always want to have to come out of pocket if they don't have to for some of those costs. So give me something on that.
I would say, the very first thing is, because I've actually met some buyers, and definitely have seen some on the vetted VA side where, the buyer does not want their real estate agent to know like anything financial. And I'm always like, man, you're building a team. Like legitimately, these are, outside of your spouse, if you're married, these two people that, are going to represent you from the loan side and the real estate side are going to be really close to you. Like family, at least for the next 30, 60, 90 days, or however long you're with them.
Right.
And I always ask, like all of our buyers, that it's where is your financial situation? Like, I know I'm not the loan officer, or at least I'm not acting as your loan officer, but I want to know kind of what is that bragging right dollar amount, because that's what I call it, where you're pre-approved to $1 million or 1.2. I'd say 9 times out of 10, they're not going to spend that amount, but that's their bragging right. And then I want to know, what are you actually looking to spend on a monthly basis? Where's your BH if you're active duty? You're looking to go over that, you're looking to stay under that. Because really, when we buy a home, we live with the monthly budget. We don't live in that 30-year big number that's a bragging right. It means nothing, right? I want to know, are you wanting to spend $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month? And I tell them right up front, I'm going, all right, when I say $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month, I'm saying that's going to include your principal, interest, taxes, HOA, and insurance. Well, if it has an HOA, if it doesn't have an HOA, then, we'll omit it. But it's everything outside of utilities. I want to know that big number. What are you looking to spend? Because that gives us, we can, reverse engineer that. Hopefully the loan officer also did that, but, and hopefully we're complementing each other. I mean, all of the loan officers we work with, and that, typically we're also trying to build a relationship, because we need to be on the same page. We need to guide this client to the right, to the success, right? Like at the end of the day, we want to be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Communication has to flow.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I want to know, what are they looking to spend? I also want to know what kind of savings do they have? Are they going to need closing costs? And that's okay. If they have $100,000, that's okay too. Like, and it's not that I want to spend all their savings, but it's like, I look at it like a deck of hands. If we're playing cards, what cards do you have in your deck? So when it comes to negotiations, we can kind of like play with that and be like, all right, we don't necessarily need to go for closing costs.
Right.
Because he has, he or she has closing costs, so we can maybe focus something on getting the roof replaced. It's a real hard sell when you come in and say, hey, I want,
all the things.
15,000 towards closing. I want you to buy my rate down, and we also need a new roof, and I don't know, and the carpet replaced or whatever. And you're going like, oh, geez, like this is going to be a hard.
I mean, again, it becomes one of those things where you're tailoring, right? Because you're tailoring according to the situation. Home sits for too long, then you
might have an option. Every home's different, and that's also where the communication between you and the loan officer comes into play. Because I'd be like, hey Ryan, is there any options out there right now where there's maybe some lender credit, and what does that look like, where maybe we can offset something? Yeah, exactly. And just kind of tailoring, trying to meet that budget, and so that way when we actually find the home and we find out what they're looking for, we can take all that information and try to present something that hopefully wins them the home, but also meets, all their wickets that they're looking for.
Yeah. So, I mean, going from that, maybe on Christopher's side here, how, when you do partner with a realtor and they're trying to go ahead and set up a proper structure for an offer, what are some of the creative ways that you guys have seen that they're able to kind of get the veteran the proper guidance and also at the same time get them into a successful role, right? Because at the end of the day, that's the end goal, is to get them to have a successful outcome out of that offer going in. So what are some of the things that you've seen?
Yeah, I guess once you're over the budget, it's not just what you're approved for, but what you're actually comfortable paying. And it's good to stay in bounds and be looking at appropriate homes, but it's also good to know what you're working with. Step one is paying for all the closing costs. Can you do that on your own? Step two is how much you have after that, right? Do you have anything left? Do you have some savings left? Say, for example, you have the 100,000. Maybe you can buy a property that has, some fixer upper, and you can put that cash into it and then maybe figure things out later. So it just depends on your position. Or like, I've had, sometimes I want to mention that sometimes things are flexible and can change during the process for the better. So say that, you have your closing costs are 10 grand. That's all you have to spend and you're really tight. Well, if your appraisal comes back 5K over, you can restructure the file and raise the purchase price 5 grand and ask for 5K concessions. And then that way you keep a little bit of cash for an emergency fund or something after. So that's also something I love and appreciate about the VA loan, is like the flexibility. And of course, yes, you'd be financing that extra 5 grand over 30 years. But it could be worth it to somebody out there. Usually people opt to like that cash because, once it's spent or once it's put in a loan, it costs money or it could be impossible to get it back out.
Yeah, no, and at the end, it's understanding what those numbers look like and what can potentially go through there. We got some of our moderators in the chat, and I don't know if you guys can see them. I'm pretty sure you can right now.
Yeah.
I'm hosting this, so I don't know if you guys can see it, but you got some good points in there where it's like monthly numbers that you're comfortable with, and being comfortable with what you're comfortable is different than what you can afford. That's very true. And it really comes down to a situation where what happens if there is an appraisal gap? You were getting concessions from your initial offer per se, but there's an appraisal gap of, let's say, $10,000. What are some of the things that you guys kind of work around, or in your case, Brian, what have you seen be utilized in order to help bridge that gap when that's the main concern, is that there may be a gap?
Right, absolutely, this is a common question for everyone, right? What if it doesn't appraise? Am I stuck with that? And it's a huge fear, but like, oh shoot, we're going to be 20,000 short, and now I have to find 20 grand, and it's not right. There's that protection there with the VA loan that you can't be forced to. Doesn't mean you might not want to cover that gap or some of it. And as Jason was just talking about, like that's a great reason why it's great when we have extra assets that we don't need to use. Okay, we have that backup plan. As both Christopher and Alexis in the comments there are calling out about understanding what affordability really means, right? It's not just saying, hey, the VA is really flexible. We can qualify you really high, but do you want to, right? Do you want that payment? If closing costs are 10 grand and you've got 10 grand, is that what you want? No, not necessarily. So understand when that gap happens, and it does happen. Again, I don't know if we're going to talk about this separately, but like we've got a couple protections in place. Or we're going to go through Tidewater. We can go through ROV. We can go through secondary review. A lot of ways to get that value up to protect you. But what if it's just short, right? We're just stuck there. We're $10,000 short. First and foremost, it's always going to go back to conversation, right? We're going to go back to let's talk to all parties. Can we figure this out? Maybe the sellers are willing to just go, shoot, we're short. We'll negotiate and come down to there. Or maybe it's somewhere in the middle, right? They can afford to come down a little bit and you're okay with covering a little bit. We've seen situations, I'm sure we all have, of like, hey, you know what? We're 10,000 short and the veteran's okay with it, right? This is the dream home. This is where they want to be. Short-term cost for long-term benefit. That's okay too. But the important thing is that you're not stuck, right? You're not stuck and like, hey, find this money, you're out. It goes back to conversation. If we can't figure that out, then maybe the deal doesn't come together, and that's okay too, right? It has to be the right solution.
I completely agree there, because at the end of it all, we are looking for the success rate of that going through, right? And so I think this is where, for me, is when people say it's like they're not like they're harder to close, right? When we start having that conversation with sometimes with the opposing, or I shouldn't say opposing, but with the listing agent, they're talking about potentially not closing because they're worried about X, Y, and Z on the property. And when it comes down to it, the VA loan is probably one of the most flexible and gives you so much more options.
Right.
And just being honest, guys, what's your average time frame for a closing on a VA loan? Compared, because everyone says, 30 days, everyone can close a loan in 30 days on a conventional or FHA, right? What's your guys' average turn time on a loan closing on a VA loan?
I'll say that most contracts still written for the close to that 30 mark, but for the time from actual processing and you know, in Minnesota we have, which I think we're going to talk about separately, we have a 10-day timeliness across the state for appraisals. So it's very, very common to have a start to finish CTC ready to go in that 2 to 3 week timeline.
Absolutely. For you, the same, Chris?
Yeah, I'm aligned with that because similarly in Michigan, you're usually going to have a 5 to 7 day initial home inspection period. And I don't really order the appraisal before that's up or things are kind of totally inked, especially if you're on a 30 days, you know, you're pretty comfortable. And then, like I said, getting all the conditions in, getting organized, title, home insurance, water test if it's on well water, stuff like that.
Yeah, you got the little one-offs, right?
Yeah, but we know that about the property going in. It's planned. We're dialed in, and yeah, it's 20 days. More, I'm saying in this market, every single market, every city is different across the states. But I think that the sellers are kind of, you know, might be valuing some occupancy, or, you know, they're not, the 30 days isn't like a hard need to hit it, big rush. I'm not seeing an issue because I'm ahead of it with the 20 days, but I'm kind of seeing like more sellers maybe need some occupancy where it's just not, it's not a pressure cooker right now.
Rent back.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah,
Jason, what are some timelines you've seen, especially of late? Because I mean, obviously, you and I work in the same markets, right?
Yeah.
Being in California, San Diego has always been a big one for me. But what do you see specifically for your market area of turn times for closings?
I would say most of our turn times are probably slightly under the 30-day. We're probably closer to like a 26 to 28, not by much. But I mean, as both Ryan and Chris have said, I mean, we've done VA loans within like 15 days. I think there's been a couple that have been even shorter than that. One of the things, and before we even, I just want to put this out there, is that your buyer's agent, before they like write the offer, or as they are writing the offer, should be calling the loan officer and actually asking them. I mean, that's something that we do every time, just because the market fluctuates. Their loan officer, depending on or bank or whoever they're using, can vary. They might be really busy or whatever, and maybe they have a slower turn time than the person that they're used to using. So instead of writing an offer and then saying, "Hey, surprise, look at the turn time. I need a VA appraisal in 6 days," and they're going like, "Wait a minute, right now it's like it's definitely 10 days," and that's a stretch sometimes, right? It's like, hey, have the conversation. They should be reaching out to the loan officer, or whoever that partner is, and going, "Hey, Chris, where are you guys seeing right now for VA appraisals? Is it 10 days? Do you think we could squeeze in maybe a 7-day or 5-day? Where's your CTC? What lender are you using, or whatever? And, what can we do here? Can we, the seller's asking for quick as possible. They want, as soon as possible. We're kind of trying to compete with someone that has cash, and they said they want to do 14 days. Do you think we can even compete with that?" And then, Chris is going to be like, "Well, based on this and this, I think we can, if we, give ourselves 1 day grace," or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But you're playing a game here, right? It's game planning. And so you have to have that communication with your loan officers, or your buyer's agents, and kind of build that. Because if I just I could submit an offer, and it means nothing if I never talked to Ryan or Chris, right? Like, I could throw out all kinds of crazy dates, and then they get it, and they're going to see it and be like, "Oh."
I mean, you and I have worked together in the past, and
Exactly.
And that's one thing that we would discuss on a regular basis. How soon can we remove this? Where do we stand on conditions?
Yeah.
How quickly can we get this ordered, and how quickly can that happen? Why? Because the communication has to be there. That communication is really the thing that's going to guide that conversation and guide that consumer to know what the expectation of timeliness is, and not just be like, "Oh yeah, hey, I got an 18-day close for you. Let's go ahead and hammer this one through." And it could be a manual underwrite, and you're kind of going like, "Oh my God, what did I just get thrown into?"
I think this is a spot where I'm going to circle back and say this is why it's so important for the veteran when they're shopping, they're building their team, they're shopping for their real estate agent and their loan officer or bank. Is, I know veterans are naturally, like, we see it all the time. They're right, like, "Hey, so and so offered me 4%, something ridiculous," right? And you're like, "Oh man, like, what are they doing?" Rates matter, because it does affect your buying power, especially in an area like San Diego where it's so expensive. But you need to ask that loan officer or whoever you're working with, what is their average date? Like, how fast can they do the loan, right? Like, there's some companies out there, when they get busy, they're pushing 60 plus days, and if they're offering you this golden rate but they can't close within at least 30 days, then what good is it? Because you're not going to write a competitive offer.
Yeah.
So just
and really the scenario matters a lot in that situation, right? Because not every consumer, you can have a grade A type veteran consumer that's purchasing a home, and you can kick that thing through within 2 weeks. If everything just flows right through, right? Because if you are in a market where there isn't too much of a backlog on appraisals and things of that sort, you can flow right through that sucker and be done in 2 weeks. Whereas you might be in a position to where all of a sudden now you're going into week 3, week 4 with a manual underwrite, and now you're pushing to try to get things closed by the closing date. Manual underwrites are not a bad thing in general, but there are sometimes things that come in those that will delay certain processes because there's additional verifications, there's the verification of rent, and sometimes when you don't get that back, that can cause delays. And so being very aware and communication with your real estate partner this is why I say it's so huge, because then we know how to set the proper expectation and temper the expectations of the consumer sometimes when they think it's gonna be a breeze, we're gonna go through it, right? The conversation should be had right from the get-go, saying, "Hey, this is gonna be tough. This might be difficult here, but we'll get it done." Right, and that starting on the right foot there, setting the right expectation up front is going to make the world a difference. And like we were saying earlier, rent backs, there might not be a rush to close, right? Because the seller might need to still occupy for another 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending if you close early. Then we're talking about three weeks of renting it back. Is the seller giving some credit back? Are they helping out on that front in order to offset some of your expenses? Because obviously you as a veteran consumer are paying now that prepaid interest for that window of time that they're going to be occupying it versus you, right? So all of those things matter. And obviously, like when it comes to contingencies, guys, especially for my two boys in the Midwest here, what are realistic expectations for timeliness and for inspections? Because I know for myself in Arizona, I can't even order the appraisal until we know that they've done their due diligence window piece where they've removed contingencies for the inspections, right? So what is it that you guys see more? I know you mentioned 10 days, but we'll start with Chris.
Okay, so I mean, I've had a tight timeline where I've ordered the VA appraisal from day one. Once the contract's accepted, they do the inspection over a couple of days, and then if I have to pull the parachute, I do. That's a way to get ahead of the timeline in very tight, rare circumstances. But yeah, usually a home inspection could be, 3 to 7 day period where we're waiting on that, plus 10 days for the appraisal. You're at 17 days. You're kind of looking at 20, 25 days for that clear to close or everything done start to finish.
Yeah. Okay.
But one thing I just want to jump back to previous, like on the manual underwritings with the VO verification of rent forms or submission letter of explanations or all that supplements, like that's something that a good lender, you're doing up front, but you're maybe having previous discussions with the underwriter at a lender before you do that to just make sure there's limited conditions when it comes out of the initial underwrite and having a smoother process. So there's a lot of things you can do, mostly to front load the file to make sure it's smooth during the process and eliminates anxiety, because we've also had those clients that need to hand you documents in person or scan them or have trouble docu-signing. So structuring an offer could also deal with the individual buyer and how quickly they get you things or what their work schedule is. Sometimes they might be a pilot, a surgeon, elderly, somebody that just can't jump on the task right away, and there's nothing wrong with that, but expectation setting is probably the number one thing and the communication is, those are key aspects of a good transaction.
Yeah. And for you, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to, what Chris just said there too is setting that expectation and understanding that a lot of people ask about how long is this loan going to take? And you know what? The loan's one piece of this. There's a lot else going on. There's the inspections. There's the realtor. How long, if it's going to take me 5 days every time I ask for a new pay stub to get that pay stub, we're not going to be fast. So just understanding that, like, hey, we're all on a team here. We're going to need to push forward and all be fast. If we can all be fast, great. Quick note on the timeliness for different areas. It's important for the lender in each area to know what that timeliness is, but that's not your appraisal will take 10 days or 7 days or 15 days. This is the limit. That's when we get to start being noisy and yelling, saying, hey, hurry up.
I was about to bring that up, but I'm glad you did. Go.
I don't think Minnesota, there's busy times, right? Especially in the Midwest, and I'm sure other areas too. We've in peak seasons, a lot of people in Minnesota want to move in the summer. That's when it's going to stretch that limit. And other times you can have a VA appraisal back dang near the next day, which is great. So a lot of those can go really fast. But what I love about the theme of this is that it's about communication. It's about game planning up front. Vetted VA, we did a pre-approval video a few weeks back, which is a great one to watch, and understanding what that real pre-approval means. And that, like, hey, we should go through a wide variety of what could come up before we ever start talking about offers. Right. So there should not be surprises. And then I do see a question in the comments here, Will, too, about does a buyer need to tell the seller? This is going to go back to what I was just saying about issues or manual underwrites or everything else, saying like, hey, maybe the veteran's not in the best place, so it's going to take a little bit longer. Absolutely not. Right. We're doing the homework up front. We're getting this done. Make sure that we're not over promising and under delivering. Don't say we're going to close this in 7 days if we know there's going to be a lot going on. But have that.
TBDs are our best friend, by the way.
What's that?
TBDs are our
100%. So understanding that, like, hey, what I don't like is just quick tip. Anyone can go on to Google and get pre-approval in 60 seconds. You'll have a letter so dang fast. But I coach my clients all the time. Do you want a letter or do you want a house? These are two wildly different things. Okay. We don't want a letter. We want to know that we have confidence that we've worked through this process, that we know it's going to work, whether it's an automatic or underwrite or a manual underwrite. That's, a foreign language to most borrowers and realtors too, that haven't gone through that process before. But knowing that, like, hey, as long as we've done our homework and we can go forward, communicate with the buyer's agent and the listing agent saying, this is a slam dunk. Might be more work for me, but this is going to get done.
This will get done. Exactly. And I love that. By the way, just because you brought up comments from the chat, that people in Cali swear the world revolves around them.
It's probably just very.
I love her because she herself is from Cali. So whatever. But no, I mean, like, getting serious about it, guys. Right? Like we are having to have the whole concept of identifying exactly what the needs are for both the consumer, for the seller, identifying what the communication lines are going to be for timeliness, expectations. And this goes across the board. This is not just one person. It's everyone in the team having to do this, which is, for me, I feel like that is one of the main reasons why you see the results that you see a lot of times in vetted VA, because you see the same kind of standard and expectation of what's supposed to happen. We all kind of run with the same type of cadence, right? And so when we're moving in that direction and we're now talking about seller concessions, or we're talking about how can we go ahead and offset these expenses, like there's people that say, oh, like, well, there's not even 4% in total closing costs for this file. Well, it's like, okay, but my client is requesting said concessions because what else can we use them for, right? I'll leave it to Jason. What are some of the things that some of those concessions can be used for additionally, other than just closing?
Well, I'm gonna throw the one out that was just tossed out. I think it was yesterday or the day before by Eric Browning, that can be used for paying down debt. That was quite a popular one in vetted VA. If anyone's been browsing some of the posts,
it's a wonderful benefit.
Yeah, it's paying down debt. Though is a huge one, especially for buyers that have that large car payment, or an unfortunate credit card or whatever. Those can be extremely helpful for some buyers. I'll go ahead and pass it. I don't take all of them.
No, Chris, go ahead and give me another one that you
on the concessions.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like being a quarterback. You go through the check downs, right? Like the first thing you're going to take is the closing costs, right? Underwriting, credit report, appraisal, title work, home insurance, taxes. Okay, what's left after that? Okay, do we have excess? We could do a price reduction, or if you have debt, we can attack the debt. The most concessions I've ever seen was I helped facilitate a for sale by owner between a veteran son buying it from his parents. They obviously gave him a great deal. It overappraised, rightfully so because of the deal. So we gave him $20,000 in concessions to wipe out all his debt. And that meant the world, because when you just have that one bill, that one mortgage to pay, life is a lot better than it was with the rent, the high interest rate debts, the car payments, all that. So that was like, I really felt like almost life-changing, not to pat myself on the back, but to structure something that way, which you can't do with any other loan. I mean, unreal.
Well, Brian, give us some 2 cents on that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I can, I'll kind of reiterate first on this. I think we just had a several questions. I mean, we get questions on this almost every week, I think. And then we hear people say, no, I talked to my lender and they said that you can't go above 4%. So just to clarify for anyone watching, What the VA handbook says is that a seller can cover all closing costs, including some discount points, plus 4%. So yes, paying off debt, use other things. Another one that we've used before is like a lease buyout, right? They're stuck in a situation like, hey, we've got a couple months left on this lease and we want to move, but we can't afford both. Or there's a fee to get out and get it done. If the seller's open to it, again, how do we find this out? Is communication. We have to figure out what those sellers want and what we're trying to accomplish. So a lease buyout, and then even some, I want to say like personal property items, right? There's certain things that would not typically go with a house that could, and your state's going to be different on how they handle the value of that personal property items in real estate. But those are things that can be included too.
And it's amazing with the flexibility. Go ahead, Chris.
I had some other things. Yeah, like returning the earnest money deposit's a classic as well. The one thing you can't ever do is get cash back, just to clarify. The other thing I've done is like mid-process, hey, we want to buy a new washer and dryer. With my blessing, they threw it on their credit card. We then paid that credit card off.
Love that.
Yeah, robbing Peter to pay Paul. No, but no, it's in a sense. I mean, we're making it simple. We're facilitating. That's what our job is to do, is facilitate the outcome. So yes, obviously we want to make sure that the buyers are in a position to where they are being taken care of, but also the sellers also not feeling like, oh, I'm being taken advantage of here. Because in the flexibility of the VA loan, you're able to really manufacture sometimes results that you cannot do in any other loan, like Chris just said earlier. It's the only loan type that allows you to do this. Like you said, giving back the earnest money, getting funds to pay for appliances. You can actually take the screenshot, or like I had this client do this. They took they went on BestBuy.com. They selected the washer and dryer that they wanted to purchase. They put it in their cart, screenshot it, or print screen that thing, sent it over to us. We sent that to escrow. Escrow adds it in as additional expenses to be paid out at closing, and those concessions were allowed to be able to be used to replace that washer and dryer that was in the home. So again, there's so much flexibility and so much ability for us to maneuver around the rules and the guidelines, because they are very flexible. And so at the end of it all, we want to make sure that they are successful and happy. Now, we're going to get into securing the person's interests, right? We talked about some of the fixtures or some of the personal properties. So what are things that we can ask for versus things we can't be asking for in a real estate transaction? For any of you guys can volunteer for. Because I'm not on the real estate side, but I know that there's certain little things that can pop up. But go ahead, Chris.
I guess like personal properties also no. Like somebody simplified this for me and it made total sense. Like if you tip the home upside down and shook it, like anything that's attached is good. But like, you know, the piano or something like that probably is not, it doesn't add value to the home. So I think they'll look through a contract to see if you noted any personal property to stay.
Yeah, and anything that's movable, in essence, you need to make sure that it falls, as Brian said earlier. You want to make sure that you're within the guidelines or the expectations of what can be done in your particular area, right?
Right.
Now, when we're talking about post closing, is there anything that you guys? And I apologize, Mike. I got a puppy here, and she's gonna be making noise now, so I'll probably trim this down. How about we do this? Let's talk about. Let's give our 2 cents as to each of us, right? We can all go round robin here. Give your 2 cents as to why this is as important as it is of a subject or topic to discuss for the veteran consumer, and just kind of your takeaways. We'll start with you, Brian.
Yeah, for sure, man. So one of the biggest things, again, we've talked about in a lot of these meetings is assembling your team, understanding what you're trying to accomplish, understanding what the skill sets are of your realtor and lender to make sure that they understand the product so they can sell the product, right? Make sure that the other parties are going to be on board, but everyone can be part of this. You shouldn't be afraid to ask your lender to say, hey, how strong is my file? And if they feel it's rock solid, can you tell that to everyone else? Can you reach out to those sellers agents? Can you fight for me? Can you help me win this? Just understanding that when we go in, as much as we're all fighting against it every day, it pains me to say that we have that slight disadvantage in the VA because of perception. And the way we beat that again is education. So we keep on sharing with everybody, hey, this is a phenomenal loan product. This is how we're going to win. This is how you're going to have the best loan experience. And I want to turn around this view you have of VA loans right now. And then, you know what, you get to tug on heartstrings a little bit and be like, really? You're going to accept this random other deal over a veteran that fought for your country? Let's go. We want to win this, man. So we want to go to bat for you. Veterans got to do some homework first, right? They got to get that pre-approval done right. We have to make sure that we have all the ammo that we need to go to battle. Don't hang it on a wish. Make sure we've got our COEs in place. We've got a rock solid pre-approval, and we can go win.
Jason, go ahead and give your 2 cents.
I kind of would like say that Ryan really kind of hit the nail on the head with the communication. And I mean, like way before they even get to writing offers and honestly, even before they start to the pre-approval process, it's super important that they build their team, that they identify their loan officer. And I'm going to kind of throw in a little bit of what, let's see, the question that was, where was it? Something about, does it matter how long a lender or real estate agent has been in business? Kind of question. It doesn't to a certain degree, because education is certainly more important than how long they've been in business. I think it's very important though that the buyer builds a team, right? Like they identify, don't go with just the first person. Talk to a few real estate agents, talk to a few loan officers, find someone that meets your personality, has education. When you called them, talk to them on the street, whatever, did they provide education? Did they tell you, like, when you said, hey, I'm looking at to use my VA loan, did they all of a sudden, vomit VA loan information? Do they seem to know what they're talking about? And goes for both sides, right? Like, does a real estate agent need to know about the VA loan to be an okay agent? Yeah, they can get through most deals until there's that hey, the appraisal came in low, or there's these issues, and all of a sudden then they're kind of like struggling. And if you found a good loan officer, hopefully they're gonna be that muscle behind that agent. But the idea is to really build that team up front. If you identify a strong agent that knows the VA loan, has the education, is providing the education to you, you may not necessarily want to know it, but at least they can provide it. And same for the loan officer, and you build it strong. Then when it comes to actually writing those offers, you already have that working team. I'm already talking to Chris. I'm already talking to Ryan. I'm already talking to you, Jerry. Like we already got these back lines. We're talking, everyone's in this well-oiled machine, and that's going to make your process that, I don't know how many times I see on Vetted VA where they're like, hey, I closed, and they're like, it was so much easier than I expected. And I was like, because you ended up with a good team. You might have not necessarily built it the way, like you may not have put the effort in to build it, but you ended up with a good team, because that's 9 times out of 10, you're going to close and be like, man, that was the easiest thing that I've gone through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's because your agent and your loan officer were working behind the scenes, making it happen. And then you'll see people that don't have that experience, and maybe they should have spent a little more time finding a better agent, better loan officer, instead of picking their best friend or their neighbor down the street.
Sometimes I look at that scenario and I think, just like you said, there's a lot of stuff that goes around in the background, and a lot of times that team that you have is kind of like that duck that's on the pond. You may not like they may just be looking like they're just chilling, but those feet are churning a mile a minute just to get all the way across that pond. So don't think that just because it looks like it's a breeze that there isn't a ton of work going on in the background, because there is always a ton of work going on in the background that you never have to see. Chris, what's your takeaway here?
Yeah, just some closing points and complimentary points, other gentlemen, on this is that, it starts with me as the lender to make sure that I educate my client up and down. I have them rock solid pre-approved. And then I move on to the buyer's agent because we're working as a team, all three of us. We might even be in a nice little group text together and working through some problems or issues. But like, is there a pain point? Because if I need concessions to make this work because my buyer doesn't have enough for closing costs, that needs to be upfront day one. We're not offering on any house without X dollars worth of concessions. I'm calculating the property taxes beforehand, looking at what's current, what's future. Like, we're working through it all, and then we're presenting that to the listing agent. And then no deal, there's no house, there's no getting a house unless that listing agent accepts your offer, right? So it's crucial that I reach out to them, extend the olive branch, reassure them, educate them if I have to. And an inexperienced agent with VA loans can't be a bad thing sometimes because they're a blank page and you can mold them and set them off with a great experience.
Yeah.
So those are my three things. Starts with me, buyer's agent, listing agent. You go through the transaction. Any bumps may have been previously discussed. And back to expectation setting, you can always reset expectations as long as you do it as quickly as you know that something may have came up and how you're going to plan to deal with it.
No, and I have to agree with all three of you. There's a lot of things, and I apologize for the noise, but there's a lot of that comes into play, right? And so the communication between everyone and having your veteran consumer know that they truly do have experienced professionals that are guiding them in the process, giving them the best possible course of action in order to be, one, ready for success upon closing on that home, but also when it comes to setting the proper expectations and guiding them through that scenario, knowing that, hey, if we come across this, right? I always tell them it's IFTT, right? If this and that, if this happens, then we're going to go ahead and do this, and we're going to cross this bridge when we come. If this happens, we're going to do that. So having those game plans in place beforehand, having the expectations set is going to be a huge difference for anyone that's going through this. And to close it out here, guys, I want to say Vetted VA as a group, as a community, is huge for the veteran consumer. You don't understand until you're in it just how much knowledge, how much support is shared between everyone. And I apologize for the noise in the background. But when it comes down to it, we are all moving in the same direction because our goal, our plan is to have you as the veteran consumer succeed. But how do we do it as professionals? Well, we surround ourselves with other professionals that are just like us when it comes to wanting to serve our veteran consumers. That means if you are whether it be a veteran professional, right? You're a veteran, but you're also either real estate or a mortgage professional, and you want to become better at what we do, then hey, join us. Become part of the group. Join Vetted VA. It's not hard to find. You go on to Facebook, search groups, put Vetted VA, and you'll see both the professionals group and the main group. If you join the professionals group, you'll be able to get a lot of information, a lot of support there, even when maybe your own brokerage may not have that information. All of that comes into your disposal now to have all that help. So when it comes to it, if you guys then decide you guys want to be part of the community and want to help us serve other veterans in the community, answer their questions, and provide all the knowledge that we can share, just based off of using the 26-7, then at the end of the day, that is what we want. And so if you guys are not part of the group, join us. Come see what we're about. And if you are a veteran out there that's just watching for the first time, know that this is just the tip of the iceberg that you're getting to see right now amongst us here in conversation. So thank you guys again for joining us. Chris, Ryan, Jason, thank you guys so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience. And again, looking forward to seeing you all next week when we roll out the next topic, okay?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
We'll take care, guys. Bye-bye. Okay, we are almost off the live here, but it's still counting.